Be like letting go, letting go. Yes, when you give guns to mama's child.
On Creole Habit, this Friday, April 21, 11 a.m. on QFM, the big station. Our special guest will be Pastor Randy Rodney.
I have been a pastor from 1989. I've pastored 4 churches in Dominica. As far as preaching is concerned, preached throughout the Caribbean, North America.
A God-fearing, hard-driving, no-nonsense evangelist, Pastor Rodney will microscopically examine the trending ills of our rebirth society, the church and culture, the church and politics, and more. Sponsored by Digicel and will be live on the QFM Facebook page. Pastor Randy Rodney, a servant of the Lord, the shepherd of righteousness and justice, that will not be intimidated by the pestilence of the environment. The courageous spiritual archaeologist delves into the cracks and crevices this Friday on QFM, on Creole Habit, a front row sit into the culture of Dominica.
Yes, I. Sakai Malad, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix. Papou an rete ba moun flen la yon mange a kite la vi. Apousiye sa yo ka fe kon yo a pa mi nou jodi. La se mouve vale vie non nou ka konsipe moun evi.
Good morning, Dominica. Good morning, Eastern Caribbean. Welcome to another Creole Habit program. Bienvenue tout le monde à tout quoi la Dominica aux Antilles. C'est un grand plaisir. Nous avons un spécial bonjour. Et puis nous là avec un grand invité, un monde qui déjà fait pile différents bulletins en Dominique, assurance, un pile travail local, un gros prêcheur, vous connaissez, un monde fort, ça fait chrétien, tout ça. Nous avons un grand invité, bon matin là, nous avons dit bonjour tout à l'heure, mais tout quoi la Dominique aux Antilles, c'est un grand plaisir. Nous avons une grande mission pour vous aujourd'hui là jusqu'à midi. Good morning, as we present one who I really relish actually interviewing for some time now. I admire when people speak their mind and with principles. I get goose pimples. Good morning to you, Pastor Randy Rodney.
A very good morning to you. How are you doing, good friend?
I am okay. Doing pretty okay today, and I really hope that our hour can be a nice educational hour.
Okay. I'm hoping so as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
I know that there are several, how you put it? There are several perceptions of Pastor Randy Rodney, but I would like the perception from the man himself. Who is Randy Rodney?
Very interesting question, and somebody would say very loaded question.
I know.
That Randy Rodney is a little fella born at the Princess Margaret Hospital by a lady from Kulibistri and a gentleman from Maho. Lived in Kulibistri for most of my life. Lived with my father in Maho for a few years while I was at the DGS. And went back to live in Kulibistri. Love country life. Attended Dominica Grammar School, and between the years of let me see if I get that right, 1975 and 1979, right? So I left in 1979, right?
Real turbulent time in Dominica.
Oh yeah. I often tell my children that I took tear gas at the ministry building on 29th of May. As a very young person, one of the things that I was taught very, very long time is to associate with people older than I was. And I took that to heart. And everybody who could impart something with me, I associated with them. And so most people thought that I was much older than I was at the time. In fact, I've often said that in 1980, I campaigned with my friend Oliver James Seraphin, who still is my friend today. But I couldn't vote.
You were too young to vote. Too young to vote.
I was too young to vote, right? I couldn't vote at the time. But that's how I was involved in some stuff, from very young. I served my community on the level of the district health committee, the village health committee, the development committee in the village. I served with the credit union supervisory committee at one point. So I've always been a community person, people's person, if you like. But over the years, I've grown into, I would say, a lot of different stuff. The circumstances of life sometimes channel you into certain places. I wanted to become a medical doctor, but my mother couldn't afford that at the time. And so I did not even go to Sifu Call. Okay. I remember Dr. K. Polidor, who was then the principal of Sixth Form College, when the school year opened, asked, wait a while, there's Ted Sierra. What happened to you?
I know.
And I said, Mom, my sister has to go to school. My sister passed the common entrance.
Oh, boy.
And my mother couldn't afford the two of us.
Priority to your sister.
I gave priority to my sister. My mother, at the time, wasn't interested in my sister going to school either, because in those days, some of our parents felt that a woman is always going to get a man to marry them. But I said, no, my sister needed to go, get an education. And I went, God ordained it in such a way that I got a teaching job at the primary school.
That's in Kulibistri.
In Kulibistri. So I could help, with matters at home. I taught for a few years. My last year of teaching was in Dublin, at the Dublin Primary School. I taught for a few years before I moved into the government service in terms of being an accounts clerk, and went to work at Central Medical Stores, a job I enjoyed immensely, dealing with the drugs, and was part and parcel of organizing what was then called the Drug Revolving Fund under the Honorable Minister Charles Maynard. Mrs. Shaw, who was the permanent secretary at the time. And so I got all of that experience working at the hospital. In fact, Val Coffey was a junior at the mortuary with his dad.
Yes. I remember that. I remember that.
Mr. Stanislaus, the mortician.
Yeah.
So I worked those days in that area until I moved into the insurance. In fact, I was introduced into insurance at Astafans by Mr. Peter J. Israel, who used to be the chief education officer, but went across to Astafans as the human resource manager at the time.
He resided at the apartments.
That's correct. That's correct. And I remember he meeting me in town and say, "Young man, what are you doing in town?" And I said, "Well, I just got married, and my contract with government at the time, Management Sciences for Health, in collaboration with government of Dominica, ended. So I got married, and I was practically on leave. And so I said, I'll be looking for a job soon. He said, I've got a job for you." I went to Astafans, worked for about a year and a half, I think it was, and then I joined Windward Island Crop Insurance. I worked my way from being an assessor up to being chief adjuster in the region. Worked there for 20-some years, right? And
that's during the banana boom.
That's correct. That's correct. Mm-hmm. That's the time when farmers, really found joy in planting bananas. On the wind crop, we must have paid about $100-something million in compensation to farmers in the region. So I got to the place where I practically was, kind of heading offices in Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, along with some of my colleagues. So I did that until I became what? In 2008, I think it was. In 2008, yes, I resigned from that job and took up the job as the agency manager of Surgical Life Dominica, and worked at that for about 7 years, and then decided that I had enough of a desk job.
All right. Well, during that time, you were undertaking being a pastor.
Oh yeah, I became a pastor in 1989.
89.
Before that, you could have called me an itinerant evangelist. So I would preach. Somebody wants to preach, I would go to preach for a week, for a day, whatever the case is. So I was an evangelist, then became pastored my first church in 1989. And from then, I took a break at one point. I just felt after 5 or so years, you know what, that wasn't for me.
I mean, Satan was then saying different things to you?
I
Or the
don't,
world?
I don't know. I don't think it's that. I think it's the circumstances of pastoring. You become a pastor, and many people think that either you're a lazy guy or you're there eating people's money.
I know.
But pastoring, especially in our country, is a very difficult undertaking because you are leading people who, number one, don't really want to be led. You are leading people who don't have any compulsion or obligation to you. And that can be tough. Yet they will tell you whatever they want, whenever they want, and expect you still to behave like Jesus Christ. Huh?
Yes.
And I just felt, I could have done better than that. And after some challenges, I just walked out of the pastorate. Literally walked out of the pastorate. One night I said, guys, I can't do this. So I walked out of the pastorate. And my maxim then was, if God wants me to pastor, he has to come down in a jacket and tie. I'm serious. And if you can imagine me doing that after I was trained in evangelism in South Korea in 1994, right?
South Korea.
Yeah. I was trained there. I visited the world's largest church at the time. That was, pastored by a gentleman called David Yonggi Cho, a church that was housing some 750,000 people. And that's not something I heard somebody say. That's something I experienced myself. And so a year and a half after that, I just figured,
What led you back? I mean, what inspired you to
go back to pastoring?
Was it your wife then, or just you as an individual who felt that that's your calling?
The truth is, my wife never wanted me to be a pastor because my wife figured she married Randy Rodney, the musician, not Randy Rodney.
So you're an accomplished musician.
Well, I say to people,
I swear I heard him on a song recently singing. I think it was Monday night.
Yes.
You played a song of yourself singing, right?
Yeah. Every Monday night I play. There's a song that one of the songs that I play to introduce the Talking Point commentary.
Right.
I
heard your voice.
I
singing.
do that song, but I am not as accomplished as my son is, and I tell people that all the time, right? But I can hold my own. Yeah. Okay, I play the rhythm guitar, I play the bass guitar, I play the drums. Right, I can find some notes on the keyboard. Let's put it that way.
Which is where your son is extremely strong.
That's right. So that's what my wife figured. So it wasn't my wife at all. Surprisingly, it was God working through a gentleman called Andrew Abraham, who passed away a few years ago. And Andrew Abraham felt that God had said to him very audibly that I should pastor his church. Yeah. I mean, where the church that he was going. And after he came to me persistently, after a few days, I guess God used him. One day he called me. He said, "Listen, I cook a broth, and I love a broth." So I went to his home, sat down to have a broth, and then he says, "Look, I mean, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but that's how I feel." And eventually, after the conversation ended, I said, "You know what? I'll come for 6 months. I'll come. Your church is in difficulty. You need help. I will come for 6 months." At the time, I was practically helping other pastors because I was using my management experience and my my biblical knowledge to help people manage their churches in that regard and provide proper leadership. I've been a astute student of leadership, and so I would help pastors do that. And so I said, okay, I'll give you all 6 months. We'll see what we do. In fact, at that time, I had just helped the People's Baptist Church. I had pastored for about 2 years. I told them I'm coming just to fix you up, get you set up, appoint a pastor, and I'm gone. Yeah. And I did just that. And I went there, put them in order, fixed them up, get the departments going, recognized a man who was called to do the work, ordained him as pastor, and I left. Right? And I thought I was going to do the same thing again. But God had other plans. And that was in May 1999. And I'm at that church to this day today.
24 years.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that background, mainly because I'm not sure if very many people knew or understand where you are coming from. And I saw our DJ Slim eye open several times, which means he was hearing information for the first time.
Yep.
And the reason for this is because we judge people. Not knowing where they came from, not knowing their struggles, their challenges. And the reason why I really wanted to talk to you or have a conversation with you, because you are from two generations.
Right.
Then and now. And you would have experienced, not read about it or been told about it, but experienced the difference. I mean, the church is known as the, our coordinator for spiritual edification and even guidance. And those days, that is what it used to be. I'm not sure if it is still that way. And that is my first question to you now that we're reaching into the meat of our matter. Has the church failed as a collective?
That's a great question, and I'm going to give you two answers to that. Okay, the answer from a very societal perspective is yes. Okay, the church, as the society knows it, has failed, and that is because we have not, as a grouping, stood up for some things, provided a measuring line for people without wavering. That is because within our ranks, we have, people have seen us compromise our own values. That is because somehow the things that we stood up for at one time, it's almost as though, they don't exist today. Okay, so from that perspective, yes, the church has failed. But very interestingly, from a very theological perspective, the church has not failed. Because the reality, though, is some people who are within our walls are really not part of what God has called his church, because those are coming from a particular description from scriptural perspective. So some people who are within the walls of the community that I pastor really don't care two hoots about the church. Okay, they come because they like the worship, they like the environment, but it doesn't mean that they have a transformed life. And unless you have a transformed life, guess what? You will only do what you have always done. Because man really is a spiritual being. Yeah. And man must function from inside out. Whatever is inside, that's what you're going to give out. Okay? So that's why I say from two perspectives. From one perspective, yes, we have failed the society because that which they see as the church has failed. Yeah. We have thieves who come, we have idolaters who come, we have whatever who come, fornicators who come, we have tricksters who come, and they come within the body. It does not mean that they are part of God's church, right? And so yes and no in that regard.
Okay, as a watchdog for morality, by the way, we're here with the kind compliments of DGCell, and DGCell is number one in Dominica. We'll take a word or two in a while, but we just want to remind you that we are here with the kind compliments of DGCell as a watchdog for morality, Pastor. When we look at then and we look at now, when we have seen the degradation of our virtues, our what we were supposed to have grown up on and teach our children to grow up on, we have seen the degradation of that, and we have seen what used to be sort of not accepted is now in our faces in abundance. What is your opinion on this?
You know, as a backdrop to answer the question, when I was at Dominica Grammar School in somewhere in 2.2 or 3.2 thereabout, there was a gentleman teaching us. He was a Shillingford, I think. His Muslim name was Sulaiman Abdul Sabur. You remember that gentleman?
Yes, I remember.
Living in Monbruce, yes, right? And as a young boy, he and I would have had several discussions, arguments, conversations. I attended grammar school at 2 break times. And every break time would be on the balcony, and I would be there. I'd look for him, right? And we'd really be talking about religion and what his religion believes against what the, quote unquote Christianity believes. Today, I wish that was the conversation that be happening in schoolyards. The morality today has gone down so terribly that you can hardly recognize, as it were, truth from error, right from wrong, sin from righteousness, in a sense, because people seem to have accepted wrong as right. And so because they have accepted wrong as right, then people like me, if I wasn't solid in what I believe, I'd be thinking that something must be wrong with me. I must be crazy. If you are saying now that that is right, then what was I taught? How was I raised? Where am I in this? And so it has become challenging now to affect this current generation with what is unadulterated truth. Okay, and that is in all aspects of the society, right? And I'm talking church, I'm talking culture, I'm talking politics, I'm talking finance, I'm talking professional ethics, I'm talking how do you go to work, right? And don't give your 40 hours a week of work, but expect 60 hours of pay, right? And well, if they don't give me 60 hours of pay, I'll just leave, or I'll take the stapler because I want compensated for what I did not work for. So it has become difficult to kind of realign people to that standard of morality in that regard in this society. So it's it's light and darkness, if you like, chalk and cheese, totally.
Absolutely, and I have experienced it. Even when we look at our dressing, today's dressing, even to church, I have seen some quote unquote young ladies in particular, going to church with outfits that, well, I know it's render your heart and not your garment, but it leaves a lot to be desired.
It's strange that that's not even what the scripture means.
That's what it means. But you'll enlighten us. But then basically you have seen the level of what used to be decent is now how you call it, old school is now old school. And the acceptance now of what seems to be the norm, and it's so skimpy, lavishly, almost naked when we have our festivals, and this seems to be the norm.
I'll tell you something, and I'm going to start with church. That's my home ground. I have had people get upset. In fact, someone went to their workplace after I did a wedding, and they were told what I said to the bride, and went to tongue on my name. But I have a principle, and I'm starting in my home ground. My principle is you come for me to do a wedding for you in a church, not on the beach. So when you come for me to do the wedding for you at church, dress like you coming to church. But pastor, is my wedding. Yeah, so what? Your wedding, if you have any modicum for me of decency, you don't come to expose what you need to expose to your husband after the wedding to everybody
behind
else.
Closed doors.
So you come to me, and I said, I have a policy on that. And if any bride breaks my policy, they know you're going to get married. I'm walking out of this ceremony. Okay? Do not come for me to do your wedding with all your breasts exposed. Is you I'm getting married to? I must look at you. What do you think I am? I mean, and this young lady left and say, oh, how hypocrite I am, and so on, and oh, it's the person's wedding, and because they think that I'm old school, I'm an old man. People go to a wedding and they put everything outside. Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to hold the standard until then. Just recently, I went to a funeral, and I was saying to my wife, she wasn't there, I was saying to my wife and my board that I just could not look across from me. I was placed in a seat where there were other people sitting across from me. I could not look across from me.
Why?
Because there's a gentleman from, I hope Aru is listening. There was a gentleman from St. Joseph who used to come to our office. And when he walked up the steps at DBMC and stand on the second floor, we had a good, majestic view of the Caribbean Sea. And he would walk up there, he says, boy, I'm seeing from Genesis to Revelation.
So across from you were seeing
from Genesis to Revelation.
Available for the eyes to see was Genesis to Revelation.
And I'm saying you are in church. Now, if you come like that to church as an individual, well, you have to walk the street naked. Okay, so there is no measuring line. There's nothing drawn, and I believe that churches need to pull the reins back. You know, I remember, I think it was Bishop Malze, if my memory serves me right, who made a comment on that some years ago, of how people come to church, and I knew he got some blows for it as well. I can't compromise this. Okay, I say to people, not even on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, you must dress and expose yourself. And people come back and tell you what it is and what it's not. And I said, you know, you can't define it as anything but immorality.
Exactly.
Whatever you say about it is still immorality. You can dress it, you can put lipstick on it, you can give it eyeshadow, it is still the same thing. Yeah. Right? And this society is plunging down a great gorge in that regard. Nothing that the scripture did not warn us about, but something that we all must take a step back and begin to draw the lines as to what is right and what is wrong, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. What do we say is good and what do we say is bad? That's where we are.
Okay, we are here, Creole Heartbeat. We are with the kind compliments of DJ Cell. A few messages when we come back. We'll be dealing with the church and culture.
Switch to Digicel Plus, the #1 broadband provider in Dominica, bringing you true home and internet fiber. Sign up for any of our Digicel Plus bundle packages and get 50% off the first month. You can pay as low as $67.50 in month 1. Enjoy the highest internet speed of up to 1 gig, fastest download speeds starting from 250 megabytes. Plus enjoy our pause, play and rewind feature. Look at your favorite show at your own convenience. Experience a stress-free life from the comfort of your home with Digicel Plus. Visit our retail store or speak to an agent today to switch or sign up for home and internet fiber. Digicel, better connected. Digicel, terms and conditions apply. Switch to Digicel Plus, the #1 broadband provider in Dominica, bringing you true home and internet fiber. Sign up for any of our Digicel Plus bundle packages and get 50% off the first month. You can pay as low as $67.50 in month 1. Enjoy the highest internet speed of up to 1 gig, fastest download speeds starting from 250 megabytes. Plus enjoy our pause, play and rewind feature. Look at your favorite show at your own convenience. Experience a stress-free life from the comfort of your home with Digicel Plus. Visit our retail store or speak to an agent today to switch or sign up for home and internet fiber. Digicel, better connected. Digicel, terms and conditions apply.
This is Creole Heartbeat, and we're here with Pastor Randall Rodney. And what we're trying to do is have a mature conversation of everything in general. Pastor, there's that misconception that culture is traditional. I mean, just the traditional aspect. Jimping, once you're talking culture, you're talking about jimping, Bele, Court, and Creole, and where Wabduet, and you know. But culture is more than that. Mm-hmm. Much, much, much more than that. It is the way we live. Mm-hmm. And when we, I mean, for instance, let's say the traditional culture, even the contemporary, because I see those days that the instrumentation, the musical accompaniment is to a grand extent very contemporary in terms of the output. People tend to feel that the church should not get involved in this sort of things. What is your opinion on this?
You know, anybody who says that, quite frankly, don't understand anything about Bible. Okay? And quite possibly the very reason why we have so many varied interpretations of scripture, because we do not appreciate the setting or the culture within which each of these scriptural passages were written. Okay? The church does not have a choice. It lives within a culture. It was born within a culture. It has grown within cultures. And the quicker we come to understand that is the better for us. I'll give you a ridiculous example of culture, right? The King James Version of the Bible, in the book of Luke, gives an example of a couple of guys who brought a man sick to Jesus. And the Bible says they could not enter through the traditional door. So they went to the roof and laid the man down from the roof. Now, as a young preacher, I remember preaching so very animatedly on this. Say, but can you imagine that these guys had so much faith that they went up the roof and they removed the galvanizer and laid the man down?
Yeah.
I did not understand that. That was a different culture. They actually went up to what we refer to as a roof patio.
Yeah.
Dropped the gentleman down for a trap door. Essentially.
Yeah.
That makes a total difference. Right? Now, it's true, they had to have some ingenuity to do that. But my thought then, and what I now understand, was totally different. The culture was different. The building culture was different. The assembling culture was different. When you talk about Jericho, for example, and in Scripture, and the Bible says that this what would call a prostitute today had her prostitute house, put it that way, on the top of the fence, right? When you think about that, that was a 30-foot wide fence.
Wow.
So it wasn't chain link fence.
It couldn't be.
Right? Now, when you understand culture, then you are better able to make certain deductions from it. The church does not have a choice but to operate within culture. And mind you, the church must affect the culture. The church must affect the culture such that the culture begins to resemble what Jesus would have done to the culture. What we've done is we have run away from the culture. And since we've run away from the culture, we've made people afraid of the culture. Let me give you another example, and this is a very contemporary one. One of the issues that some of my colleagues had with me initially, in fact, today I can see it's fewer now, was that I was one of these people who followed the Black Power movement. So let me leave that there, right? So from back then, I have a certain mindset.
Consciousness.
That's right. Consequently, when you give me something, I want to investigate where it's coming from before I do anything about it, before I eat it, before I use it, before I play it. So long before I became a Christian, my favorite, artists were Bonnie O'Reilly Whaler and Bob Marley and
Peterson Tosh,
and all these guys.
Culture.
I mean, that was what I listened to. Okay. Fast forward to the church. I became a pastor, and if anybody comes to my church, they'll tell you if there's an American music that I like, because of my little musical background, I change that into a soca beat boy.
Caribbean flavor.
Give it a Caribbean flavor. Do something with it. There's a song that everybody loves now, and I people recorded that from YouTube probably, and some people are saying back to me, where I did "You Are Too Faithful to Fail Me." That's a song of Moses Bliss from Africa, right? We were the first, as soon as that song came out, to begin to play that in reggae, right? I think Christopher one of them, just made a reggae interpretation of the song. For me, this is within the space I live. And I need to meet you. I need to get you on board. And I can't give you the American stuff, because what will first get your attention is what you're familiar with. I live within that culture, right? So there is church culture. There is, like you see, there's traditional culture. Let me say something to you that might maybe enlighten you or maybe get you on the other side. That's fine. I love traditional dances. But what I've taken time to do is research them. So I've had traditional dances done at my church Sunday morning. My girls will do heel and toe, or flotation, right? They will do quadrille, right? What I don't like, not quadrille, what I don't have them do is the ballet.
The real African thing.
Not just African thing. It's African culture, yes. But what is the genesis of that, right? And so I am able to make a distinction, right, between this and the quadrille and the flotation and the heel and toe, right? Because from my understanding, the gyrations and everything they do has to do with the communication with the spirit, right?
Yes.
Now, because of my religious perspective or my biblical perspective, I have to be cautious about that because I know what that
gyrations can lead to.
That's right. So you understand what I'm talking about. So when you understand culture and you understand the differences of it, you have to first understand that you don't have a choice but to live in culture, right? When I began preaching first, you couldn't find me preaching without my tie. Okay. And then when we moved to the church, when we were on the tent, I said to the church that I will never wear a tie under a hot tent, except I was in a wedding, because it's
For more formal.
I would never wear a tie under the hot tent. I've gone to the place where now I probably have 100 something ties in my wardrobe. I don't wear one tie. I don't wear ties because it's too European for me.
I know. But I know Slim have been waiting for that particular question. Today's music on the backdrop of what we have produced in Dominica. And I say that because there is a library of stuff that Dominica has produced, where Dominica's music excelled, went to the four corners of the globe. We influenced several other genres. We were hailed as, extremely talented by the French. As a matter of fact, it became the whole copyright and French music business was built on, in particular, cadence lips music. 99% in one of my ads was sang in Creole. We know the metamorphosis of the whole Creole language from the slave plantation, so there's that connection. #1 hits throughout the Caribbean, South America, as far as Jamaica, as far as Japan, our music played. We have gotten, or we have accepted, a new generation type of music called the nasty business. And it seemed to be accepted because I have gotten, if in case I would have to count, almost every day I'm slammed. Mainly because I think there's a time and place for everything. And the manner which they want to actually play it is that everybody should accept it. And what concerns me the most is there is a deafening silence, even from the church. I'm not hearing much people from the church speaking about it, even the authorities. And I'm appalled. For someone like me who have, almost 15,000 CDs. I own the whole Cadaslips collection. I listen to blues, jazz, pop, spooge, ska, way back to today's music. And I'm hearing a sort of music where explicit sexual content, deviance, is accepted. And if you dare talk about it, you have been guillotinized.
That question probably deserves a whole thesis.
I know.
You were on with Gordon Henderson some time ago.
Yeah.
And I remember messaging you and telling you how I felt that was a great interview.
I remember.
I've had great respect for Gordon Henderson. And I have great respect for him because of his ability to produce music. I remember when in the introduction of what we now call bouillon music, Gordon Henderson was asked a question. I don't remember who it was who asked him that question. And he was making, without criticizing anybody, a distinction between music that is creative music and drum machine, right? And I remember he was taken to task for that as well. But I've always stood by that perspective. Now, something has happened to our musical culture. Now, music is divided in really two parts. When we look at music from that perspective, you have the musical arrangement and you have the lyrical content. For some reason, our musical arrangement have gone to the place where it has become so encouraging to gyration that now some people had to add the explicit content to complement that, right? No longer would somebody go to a dance hall and have a nice dasekole, and rent a tile. Okay. Now everybody want to be in somebody's other side and somebody's front side or somebody's behind side.
The posterior seem to be
for there to be a dance.
Yes.
Where is that coming from? And I agree with you. The church has been silent on it because some of us don't know how to tackle it.
I don't say the church is scared.
Well, I'm not scared.
Well, I'm talking as a
collective.
As a collective.
But here's the issue with that. The issue is people are afraid to touch anything because they feel once they touch that, then Wadix is going to get vexed with them, and this one's going to get vexed with them, and this one's going to get vexed with them. And I say to people, when I'm in the matter of the gospel, I understand people being vexed with me. That is part and parcel of the road that I walk. Okay? When you take that kind of music and put it in the public, the people who put it in the public know why they're putting it. They're putting it to get to themselves a certain crowd. I said in someone yesterday at a funeral that the world has become so selfish that all we are thinking about is what we want from it, until what we want sows a seed that brings up a harvest that mashes up our pocket or tears down our family, or somebody rips our child and all of that. It doesn't affect us now, so we keep pushing and we keep pushing and we keep pushing, and we don't understand that when we destroy the society, we are in effect destroying ourselves, right? This nasty music, government need to regulate it. Government has regulated so many other things, right? I spoke about that some time ago on my program in Kingdom Connection. I made reference to a song that was banned in Jamaica. I think it was Love in There or one of them who sang that song. Don't bend down, don't bend down.
Shaba,
right.
Shaba.
And the interpretation then to the Jamaican public was you bending down for this and bending down for the other.
With a homosexual connotation.
That's right. Until this gentleman was brought into the public after they banned the song, and he began to explain where the lyrics came from. And then they removed the ban on the song. Now, the government was in its place to do that. Right? But then the explanation he gave was so right, that they had to say, you know what, let's leave that alone. What he was actually saying was he was not giving a sexual explicit connotation. He was saying, some of you want a car and you bend down. You want a house and you bend down. And he's saying to them, don't bend down for any one of those things. You get where I'm coming from. Now, my thing is, when you have what I've heard, I was doing a job for a lady in Roseau. A guy's driving his bus, right? I'm on the second floor. He is yards away from the place, and I can hear all the lyrics, and I'm saying, my goodness, that is destroying a child's mind, right? And that some of us need to say clearly that this is shameful, and we must not accept it for society. The people who do it say they do it for their personal benefit, their money. There are people who want it, so they do it, which is the same thing with every other immoral act. That's why Jesus says that the road to hell is wide, and many there be that find it. The road to righteousness is narrow, and few there be that will find it.
One of my issues is reputation. What comes up from a country should be the best product.
Right.
During the days we had the bananas, we shipped the best bananas we had. So we know that whenever someone eat our bananas on the other side, we were proud of it. When we had the so-called old school music, we
had the best music.
We know we were proud of it because we knew whatever comes out. But then the explicit stuff, as a pastor, hearing that is the best available music out of Dominica, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired.
It speaks volumes of the mind of the people and where they are.
And one of the things I think that we overlook, a lot of the songs, include from calypso to even bouillon, is a reflection of society.
That's right.
Now, this is this may be some may take it all different ways. That is who we are. That is why we accepting what we're bringing out.
Mm-hmm.
You understand where I'm coming from? And then we are too caught up in our selfishness that we are not even realizing it's a reflection of us and who we are. I really want us to touch on the church and politics, because there seems to be some misconception again that the church should just be neutral. You support who you support, and ills of society or things that are possibly perceived to be wrong or right, the church should have no say on it. What is the perception of the church and as a collective again, and speaking, or not even speaking, but educating as a spinal cord of the church on the rights and even wrongs and even ills that may be at least intertwined into the political atmosphere. I feel now the level of tribalism is appalling, and that's my personal opinion. I can say it on both sides, but I'm still hearing a deafening silence from the church.
You see, once the church, the reason why we are where we are today is because the church has been neutral.
Exactly.
The church must, if the church must be the church, it must never be neutral. The church has a side.
Of course.
The fact that it is church, you have a side. And the side is the side of righteousness. Now, if you don't want to take the side of righteousness, you are not the church. The equation is as simple as this. If you don't take the side of righteousness, you are not the church. You're an organization looking for your benefit. You are people looking for your pocket. You're looking for your 5% or your 10% or like the trader, and then call it some other thing. But that's what you are. The church has a side. Because I serve God, that's my side. Everything else is on the other side. And my job as a church is to say, hello, the right side is this side. I'm sure you sometimes listen to a song, to our program, and you hear, we have a song that I introduce I do the roll call with.
Yes, on the right side. Yes.
You have to be on the right side. Once you are not on the right side, you are on the other side. And if the church is not on the right side, it is not the church. It's as simple as this. And the church needs to rise. And when we talk about church now, we talk about everybody who feel that they or know that they are part of the church. They must rise to say, we can't take this. This is wrong. You know how many times I've shared that with people, and I've heard people give me excuses like, well, that's politics. So I say, well, how do you accept lie as politics and a Christian? How do you accept that? How do you accept untruth as that? How do you accept corruption as that?
But then very carefully, the right should be right on all sides.
That's right.
If side A do wrong, it is wrong,
That's
regardless of whether it's side A. If side B does wrong also, it should be wrong.
Because the wrong or right must not be considered based on this side.
Exactly.
It must be considered based on what God has to say about it.
Exactly. Now, the silence, Pastor, is perceived as consent. When there is nothing said, for instance, myself and Slim may be on the bubble, not sure, boy, where to turn. We need that spiritual guidance and edification. Now, when the church is extremely silent, we get caught up.
Mm-hmm.
We get caught up to boss, which one we like to hear, but then that permanence, that voice to lead the right way is so silent.
And that, like I said, that is a real issue. That's why in Dominica today I've been labeled by some and maligned by some and castigated by some and loved by some. It's because I have always been the person who will stand with the truth. Hear this, politically, and I have made that statement before. I'm going to make it on your program today. Politically, I have been invited to serve on every political party in Dominica. Everyone, the Freedom Party, the Labour Party, United Workers Party. Okay? So it's not because people don't see a certain competence. Okay? I've been asked to contest elections. In some cases, I've been offered good change. Right? But I've said this. You can't buy me because I've been bought. Okay? I've already been bought, so you can't buy me. You can't sell me because I'm not for sale. Okay? Consequently, I know where I'm going. There are people who, and Oliver James Seraphin, Johnson Boston, and I'll mention a few names because I'm not talking out of thin air. Cecil Joseph, quite a number of people have approached me. The first person who approached me to contest elections was Elkin Henry, Dr. Valde Henry's father. And he wrote me a 2-page letter to ask me to contest elections for the Labour Party when the Labour Party was in its lowest days.
Labour powder.
That's right. Okay. But here's the honesty about him. He sat with me and he said to me, here's what politics is liable to do to you. Check this person, check this one out, and check this one out. Right? Oliver Seraphin and I had a conversation. I reminded him some time ago that he took me to Orchard restaurant by June when she had the, full-fledged restaurant. And we sat there for a while and he said to me, here's this thing. I know I had asked you one time that, you need to contest election, but I want you to look at this. Here's what politics can do to you. Go in this thing with your eyes open. Otherwise, leave it alone. Okay? Those were honest responses that I got. Now, I feel I could make a change. But here's what I've said to all of them. I will not take collective responsibility for wrong because of who I am. I will not be able to say, well, we agree to steal Wadix money and give it to Slim. I'm going to say, guess what, guys? Please let the record show that I did not support that move. And if you want to force me to do it, I'm going to resign, which means I don't think I'll last for 6 months. You get where I'm coming from? Because you need to be on the right side as a Christian. Politics today has become that the party becomes our God instead of God is our God, and we judge the parties based on God. So we have people who made the UWP their God. We have people who make the Labour Party their God. And without the understanding that if we're serving God, none of those must be our God. All of them must be subject to what God said. And that is where the church must be. That is where a child of God must be. That's where Christianity must be in every respect.
And I'm happy you said this, and categorically, we also have, as time is winding down, but I really want us to touch on this. The advent of, well, we know we honor one God, but then in our community, it's obvious that there are several gods, or people make gods. Several people make gods, including negromancy, which is very rampant. And we have seen people go in that direction for their edification, for their confidence, for their what do you call it? For their enrichment, for their pleasures of the world. And very few of the church members as a collective, knowing that this is rampant, knowing this is a fact, speak against it.
And we come back to the same principle. If you believe it's wrong, you need to say it's wrong. So I've had people, I counsel people weekly, and I keep statistics, right? 7 out of every 10 people I counsel are not from my church. 5 of those people come with problems that they have gone to everybody else for. When they come to me, I say to them, listen, I'm like a doctor, so you need to answer my questions. Who have you been to? What have you taken for that? And you'd be amazed to hear the answers. And sometimes
answers like what? Red lavender, light candle.
I'll tell you something. Some people come with some stuff that some people give them to carry. And some of them will tell me, come home, I have that. That person give me that. It's at home on my shelf, so and so. There are some places I've gone and they didn't tell me. And I said, what's that? And once they struggle to answer me, I said, listen, me and that can't agree.
Yeah.
So,
Is that how you leave or
so
you tell me?
I'm going to leave, or you hold that, or I'm going to take that and mash it up and I'm going to come in. One or the other. Two of us can't agree. Okay? Up front. Right? I remember I was sitting with somebody once and I'm trying to help them. They're serious probably. And I said, look, this is what the Bible says about that. And I said, well, Pastor Randy, I know what you say that, but I don't want to leave my church. I said, I can help you. I walk out.
Another thing, Pastor, I know time is running out, is the level of blasphemy, is the level of using God as a scapegoat for everything else. When deep down,
you know very well.
You don't believe God. It's not God.
Yes, right. But that's the thing. Everybody uses God because they hear the word God. But somebody might be talking about a God that you are opposed to.
Yeah.
You have to find out which God they're talking about. Okay? So and that's what I do when people come to. I don't just lay my hands on people and pray for them. I mean, I know preachers do that all over the place and just begin to talk to them. I don't do that because I don't know which God you have been contacting. And I need to know so I can address this person that you're talking about. Listen, this world, you talk about, I don't think you know half of what you just said. Of the negromancy, of the people going to get fixed, and people going for this, and people making sure that person married them and that person stay married to them and that person loved them and that person whatever else. All kinds of stuff in this lovely whitey kubuli, right? And you have to deal with this. For me, I deal with this on a weekly basis, right? Pastor, I can't get a job, and so I went to so and so, and I can't get this, and I wanted that, and that was me. I would not do that, and my child wouldn't do well, and so on. And everybody have a different portion they take for a different thing. That one walk with a head of garlic, that one walk with 2 onions, that one walk with a cross in their back. They have an open scissors over their door. They have a horseshoe over their head. They have an open Bible, even an open Bible on their table in their bed. You have all kinds of magie happening. And people tell you it's in the name of God. And I tell people, God don't have to do magic. God is straight. You're either right or you're wrong. Some people are doing the magic because they're already so much in the magic, right? That they can't leave it. But they come for you to bless magic. I can't do that. And the church must not do that. We have to stand up and say, look, we are either for God or against him. We're either doing God's work or we're not doing God's work. And that's where I have been all the years of my life. And listen, I'm not a perfect guy. Sometimes I send a bullet and I miss it bad.
None of us are perfect.
Right. But in principle, you have to be able to say, this is what is right and this is what is wrong. And it does not matter who is proposing the right or the wrong. You are not judging the right or the wrong based on the individual. You're judging the right or the wrong based on God's standard.
And as we live, Pastor, the level of deception, dishonesty, and selfish, community. Like I said, I'm happy we are from 2 different generations. Mm-hmm. We were raised in the Kudme, leave our house open and go Rozo and that sort of thing. If we have a mango, we share it with our friends. Everybody take a guab. But we have become so selfish. So selfish that it has to be us and us alone, or our friends and our friends alone, whereby even if we see people hungry, what has become of us?
Go back to the same thing. The scripture says, man has become lovers of himself more than lovers of God. We are selfish and myopic. When I moved into the community that I now live in, my wife and I, every Christmas, she would make fruitcake. And she would send me to distribute fruitcake to her neighbors. We did that for a few years. And then something happened. There was a young lady who was being raped in one of the houses, and I heard the scream. And like I would do, because that's how I'd raised, I got up, jumped out, run outside in my boxers, and went to save the girl. Let me tell you something. Nobody got up, Nobody else in the society get up.
I know.
And my wife said, no. She said, something's not right. So from then she got so discouraged that she stopped doing that. She still gives that one and give that one something. We have gotten so myopic, so self-centered, that we have lost the essence of community. And I would to and part of that is the political culture. It started once upon a time with the religious culture, but I think that was mended, quite frankly. I have had breakfast with priests, and we've sat and have lunch, and we drive together, and we laugh, and we do whatever together. But I think the political culture has gotten so terrible that's even dividing boyfriend and girlfriend, and husband and wife, and so on. And so families are divided, and we have to find a way to bring that to a head, solve it.
I want to really thank you, Pastor, for really giving us, I think it was a sermon. That's how you call it in your church, a sermon? Yeah, yes. Because it was really edifying and educational hour. We touched on various topics, but once I just want to continue to pray that the Father will bless, guide, and protect you. And I wanted the public to see the other side, or to hear of the other side. And from now, they can make their own opinions. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for being on the program as well. Thanks a lot.
The news, the major comes up next, another Creole Heartbeat in another week's time, next week Friday.
Yes, sir. Sakai Malad, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix, Prince Wadix. Papou wete ba moun flè la yo mange a quitter la vie. Apprécier ça yo